Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Stool podcast, a podcast for woodworkers and the maker community in general. This is episode number 33. My name is Robin Lewis from robinlewismakes.com. I'm joined by Joey Chalk from King Post Timberworks.
Hello.
And Jordan Crawford from Periodic Furniture Studio.
Hello.
We live stream the recording on YouTube every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time or UTC plus 10, or you can watch or listen to it later on YouTube, iTunes, or SoundCloud. I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. We'll get to your comments towards the end of the show, but feel free to chat amongst yourselves, the idea being that this is also a place for people to meet. So there's just one announcement this week, and that is from next week, we're going to be moving the show to Tuesday nights. It'll be the same time, but it's going to be on a Tuesday.
That's my fault.
Well, I was just about to say that's pretty much it. There's not too much more to say about that. So we hope everyone can make it on Tuesday. But obviously the audio podcast will still be there, so you can always catch up on it then.
Yep.
All right. This week, I know I'm sure all of us are pretty eager to hear what happened with Joey's client last week. So Joey, do you want to start and tell us what's happened?
Sure. Well, it was a little uneventful, but I kind of went backwards and forwards a little bit with her about just trying to get a day where she would be home. So I got there, I said, let's look at this thing. Show me all the things that you want fixed. And so it really came down to having to paint the bolt head, which she didn't like seeing, which held the thing onto the wall. And there was one screw which I hadn't put a cap over, so I put a cap over that screw. And there was the worst thing that she had a problem with was that where the stairs came down the wall, there was a power point on the wall, and we had to make a very small notch in our staircase to fit around the kind of very edge of that power point. And she said to me, well, I just don't understand. You came and took measurements, and how come it's not right? And how come there's a notch? And I was like, well, I mean, fair enough. It's not quite that simple. This is a very large thing. You've got 10 moving parts here.
Yeah. And
sometimes it just doesn't get it right. I missed something somewhere. I was kind of 10 mil out, and I can only apologize.
Just to interrupt you there. So are you saying then that and there's obviously nothing wrong with it, but you are saying then that this could have been avoided?
Well, I suppose so. Yeah.
But it's not something you looked at and went, geez, I should have got that right. It wasn't that type of mistake.
I mean, I was a bit annoyed at the time, but once the stairs are made and you've left, you've done your measure up, you've gone to the workshop, you've made your thing, and then you come back and you've got it, you can't go and then remake it for the sake of a 10 mil so it was like the height of a PowerPoint, 80 mil by 10 mil deep. It's just a little notch that all I ended up having to do was no more gap or cork around it. Just masked it off, put some no more gaps around it. That was it. I stayed there for about 40 minutes because I had to get 2 coats of paint on that bolt head, and I used her hair dryer even to dry the paint, and so I could get 2 coats of paint on it. And because she seemed still quite unhappy with that little notch, I said, right, I'll give you 10% off the final bill. She goes, oh, great, I'll pay straight away. So that was that. I got paid the next day. And I mean, it brought up a conversation in our workshop about should I just be adding 10% to all jobs, not as a kind of a fallback, like I could just take 10% off. But one, it could be a 10% profit, or it's this kind of contingency for things going wrong. I'll take that, and I'll give you that discount.
So the client from hell ended up not being too bad.
She, like all the other things I talked about that she had on her email, she was just like, oh, don't worry about it. Like all these really massive issues, just all these big things. It just didn't even come up, which is just very strange. But
Yeah, well, it's kind of, you're giving them a cooling off period, and they've thought about it. Like,
Yeah.
if I ordered something and I paid whatever several $1,000s for something, like, you know, whatever, and it wasn't exactly what I wanted, I would be pretty heated about it at the time. But give me a few days to calm down, and you know, I'll realize, oh, who cares? It's not that big of a deal.
Kind of like getting an 80 watt instead of a 100 watt laser.
That's exactly what it's like. Yes.
So, yeah, there was actually went back just before and looked at the comments from last week's podcast on YouTube.
Yep.
And there's a couple of good comments there about why the hell am I giving people 7 days to pay when they should, you know, the old adage, you know, you can't go to a shop and buy something and then pay 7 days later. Which I fully understand.
I've never thought of that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why what I give seems ridiculous. And I was kind of thought, well, that does make a lot of sense. The reason I do that is, like somebody commented, it's a kind of a leftover from being in the building industry, where once you make something, I mean, you can't build for something that doesn't exist. So every week you would bill them for the work that's being done. A week to pay, 5 days or 7 days to pay. You can't expect them to pay on the day. So, especially with building work. So that's something I've carried on, but it doesn't make sense for freestanding pieces.
I mean, I still give people 7 days to pay, and I'd say 99% of my stuff is freestanding. Very rarely is there anything other than bringing it into the house included. But the reason I like to give the 7 days to pay is that if something did go wrong in that delivery, then the client's not out of pocket of a finished item without having it in. Like, say that some accident happened and something fell over in the van or whatever, and you have to take it back to your workshop and fix it up, which is a pain, but at least the customer doesn't feel like, oh, this guy's just taking my money and run.
But when you guys talk about paying on the day, are we talking like FPOS or cash? Because surely if you are, you know, if there's a problem with delivery, they just don't pay you then on the day and then you extend it. You know what I mean?
Most of mine comes through, like on my invoices. You can click on my invoice and say pay, and they can pay online, deposit, or credit card for me. I do have FPOS, but I never take it with me on a delivery. I just say transfer it.
Yeah, sorry, Joe. That's why I'm wondering how can you enforce same day payments? Do you know what I mean? Like this, to me, the 7 days just seems more logistics than anything, because you take them the table, and then at what point do you say, right, you have the table, give me the money? Because no one uses cash, so how can you demand that money? Do they pay you before the delivery? Because I'm sure no one's going to say yes to that.
Well, that's what I do. I've done that, and I think I'm going to start moving towards that model. Apart from built-in furniture, that's why I wanted to make that distinction. Whenever the piece isn't finished properly in the workshop and I have to actually build it into the house, that's when I would give them 7 days to pay. Because I can't expect them to pay for anything, because who knows what might happen. The whole thing might not fit and I've got to take it away. But for a freestanding piece, what I have done a few times is finished it in the workshop. I take a couple of pictures of it, send it to the client and say, here it is finished. Here's the bill. As soon as I see the money, I'll come drop it off. And the money's in the account the next day. It's just a little bit of hassle having to take some good pictures of it, but I usually take good pictures of my stuff anyway.
Do you find, like, for me anyway, I offer the 7 days, same as you, but I will tell the client that, yeah, we're all done, here's the photo, and I also send through the final invoice and say, once delivered, you'll have 7 days. But they usually pay even before I've delivered it, which is, to me, it can make me feel a little bit uncomfortable before delivering, because if they're not happy with it, and I've got their money, then I've got this obligation to, like, make it right. Which
I've never had a client do that.
I've never had it happen either, but it's just like I've
never had a client pay my bill, like, Well, I must say, I've never given them the final. Usually what happens for me is I'll drop the thing off, make sure they're happy, and then when I get back to the workshop in the next hour, I'll send them the email, the final invoice.
Yeah, right.
What I've been thinking about doing, because on my invoices, it says payment within 7 days, blah, blah, blah. I think I'm going to delete that line and say payment due by the above date. And then it's just up to me as to when, what date I put on the invoice. I could give them 1, 2, 3, 7 days if I want.
It's also a good way to enforce a deadline on yourself as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, it has to be done before this date is a good way of looking at it.
The only thing you'll have to be careful with is, excuse me, a lot of people have become used to the traditional 7 or 30 days. So you'd have to point that out to people and say, have a look, which might be a bit of an awkward conversation.
Yeah. Well, I do find a lot of the times, I think people forget that after 2 days, they might have just forgotten the bill, especially if you print it out and they have a physical copy. The bill gets buried in a pile of paperwork and you just don't get paid. And so then you've got to write that email. Look, it looks like I haven't seen the money yet. Can you please make sure this is going to get paid? And then usually it's, oh my God, I forgot about it. Sorry. And here's the payment straight away.
It's on its way. Yeah. Yeah. Because then at that point, then they feel bad about it. Tim C has just mentioned in the chat about a quarter of my jobs these days use Afterpay. What is Afterpay?
It's like so you can buy an item up front, but you have, I think it's up to 2 months, like fortnightly repayments, no interest on it. So if it's like $500, then you divide that by 4 and you can pay it off in smaller increments. I think it's a really cool concept. I don't know how, it's fairly new in Australia. I don't know how established it is, but I've noticed quite a few small businesses around here now accepting Afterpay.
Sorry,
It's
but
like
as
short-term labor.
But then as the furniture maker, like that's a risk on your part, isn't it?
Well, the thing is, it's more about product that I've seen it for. I've not seen it for any services. So, like, if you go and get a $200 haircut at a lady's hairdresser, I don't know if that's cheap or expensive these days, but if you go get that, the hairdresser gets paid up front, but you don't make your first payment, or you don't make full payment at least until the end of that 4 weeks or 8 weeks, whatever it is.
So who cops the delay?
No one, that's the thing. There's no interest charged on it. So I have no idea how it actually works.
It's got to be someone who's raking their not necessarily the interest.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like if it's $100, it's I think it's a minimum of $100. It's 4 payments of $25. You still get $100 in your bank account, being the service provider, and you've paid $25 each week. You haven't paid any more, but you've had this weird staggered timeline to pay it. I think it's a cool concept because it makes things, especially like if it's an expensive chopping board for me, it makes it less intimidating to fork out $400 up front.
I suppose so. I don't like, I'm always nervous. I had a client recently with a big bookcase that decided after everything had gone through that they wanted to just pay it off, the whole thing. Every 2 weeks, they'd give me $500. And the whole thing just was annoying because it's like, if you don't have the cash for the thing, then maybe wait until you've saved it before you order it. And it was just a bit of a stuff around because I had it scheduled in to start, and then actually I can't pay the deposit in full. I'll just start paying it off. I was like, well, that's great, but now I can't start that work, and it's kind of in the timeline, and it just kind of throws things around. So yeah, I from that point of view, I get a bit nervous when people start saying, can I pay you off? Because it's like, well, that means you don't have the money right now.
Yeah.
Which is not ideal.
Yeah, that's kind of making their problem your problem. Yeah.
It's also a part of the joy of offering a service. Like, people are always going to want to try and get around it somehow.
And that's why I'm really interested in this Afterpay, because that to me just sounds like, you know, because banks work on the value of risk. So this sounds like a massive risk, setup.
I bet it's like some kind of monthly fee that, because this third party must be taking on that risk of forking out that cash before that other money comes in.
Yeah,
and it must be like a monthly service fee to
apparently this is just in the comments. Apparently Afterpay will charge the seller, so whether it be a commission of that sale, I don't know, or whatever. But yeah, they obviously do. I guess it's a way you get more sales through it, so maybe you make slightly less on the actual end product. Who knows? But it's a cool concept.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Right. So that was pretty much my week. I just put out a video about painting stuff. So if you're at all interested in painting stuff, go watch that.
I really enjoyed that video.
Okay.
But the bit that I didn't enjoy, well, I mean, when I say enjoyed it, I like the fact that what you're doing is simple and easy enough for anyone to do. The bit that I don't like is the fact that I've been doing it like that, but I still don't get those results. So there must be a degree of either skill or patience involved in it.
I guess it's probably just a bit of knack of just learning when to leave it alone and when it needs a bit more paint. When I did the voiceover, I kind of didn't know what to say, because I was like, what is a bit like trying to tell someone how to tie your shoelace. Like, you don't actually know what you're doing because you just have muscle memory.
Or not only that, it's you don't know what you're doing that separates you from what makes this unique almost. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure if it actually helped anyone. Hopefully, I'm not sure.
Well, as I say, I was happy that it's as simple as that. You don't need to go hide away in some Buddhist monastery for 2 years and learn the art. You can do it. Yeah.
Mm.
Cool. All right. Anything else, Joey, or was that the?
No, that's my week.
Jordan, how about you?
I'll keep it pretty short because there's not been a huge amount. The laser saga from last week has continued with trying to get the provider of that machine to admit they sent me the wrong stuff, and I just keep getting blocked. And then I use a new email address, and that email address gets blocked, and then I ring them, and they hang up on me, and blah, blah, blah. So
you've actually tried calling them as well?
Oh, totally, yeah. I've called them, I've WhatsApped them, I've Skyped them. It's just,
Did they hang up the phone on you?
Yeah, it's great. I love China. Well, I shouldn't say China. I like this supplier.
This company, I think.
The company. So yeah, I've just given up now, and I'm just stay away from Robotech CNC because they're rip-off merchants. At least I got a machine though, so that's kind of
Was that Robotech CNC that you said, Jordan?
Yeah, Robotech CNC. Robotech.
Sounds like you're saying Robotech CNC, but
yeah, Robotech CNC.
I probably won't recommend them then.
No, I wouldn't recommend them either. So that happened. I don't know. I've been working on my surfboards and all that sort of stuff for the new financial year underway now. Hopefully I can get on top of all of that. The table that I've been working on, which feels like forever, is finally finished. It's just sitting in the spray room right now with its final coat of lacquer.
Cool.
And something cool that happened. Stop me if I already said this, but my sister's a lighting designer, and her company has just dropped a major supplier of theirs. I won't say brands just in case it's hush hush. But basically, they had a massive commercial lighting display in their showroom, which they ripped down. And instead of throwing it in the skip, my sister thought of me because she's a lovely sister, and she's given me $10,000 of commercial lighting for my workshop.
Wow, awesome.
So it's like 8.
What, like big halogens and stuff?
No, LED. So 8 3-meter long linear lights. So that's one for every bench, which like one of those lights has more output than all of my lights in my workshop put together.
Sorry, 8 3-meter long
linear.
LEDs.
Yeah. And these aren't like LED strip lights that you think of when you think of like eBay special. These are proper commercial lighting that you see in like high-end restaurants and things like that.
Because so my workshop is 9 by 6 meters.
Right.
And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 10 of these LED fluoro tubes. So I guess it's a little bit better than the strips that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And I have 10 of them, and they are 1.2 meters long, and they do more than enough for my workshop.
See, that is more than I had in my entire 300 square meter workshop before these lights came in. So you've got more lighting than I did. That's how bad my lighting situation was here.
But now it's good. You're gonna have to wear sunglasses in there.
Well, yeah, and the nice thing is they're all LED, so they're all using no power. And some of them, there's this really cool light which I love. I wish there was more, but I can't really be a beggar when I've been given this stuff. But on one side, it's cool light, and then on the top, it throws a warm light. So as that hangs, it hits like all of my truss and stuff on my roof, and it illuminates the roof in this warm glow.
You've already got them all hung then?
Yeah. So, I mean, I haven't hung any of them yet. I've just been playing with it. I've also got a heap of these like pendant downlights, about 15, which I'm thinking, because I'm starting up courses very soon for surfboard building. I'm thinking I could maybe make like an installation with one of these giant slabs and just have lights hanging out of it and a frame kit and just like kind of go to town with it. But that has been kind of the best thing that happened this month for the workshop, just having this stuff.
Yet another Jordan getting awesome free cheap stuff.
Leroy's calling you out for it in the chat as well.
Hey, I don't know what I do, all right? I guess I've done something right in my last life. I must have been a Buddhist monk or something, or saved lots of kittens and puppies from a fire or something.
That idea of the fluoros shining up a different color that is so wicked.
Yeah, it looks really cool. And I'm like, there's these surface mount lights as well, which are all warm light. So I'm thinking, because I don't like warm light in the workshop, perfect for the office, but not in the workshop. I'm thinking those I could maybe mount on an angled plate and shoot up to the structural I-beams in the workshop. Because these classes I'm doing are at night.
That would be awesome.
They have the option to come at night. They can book in at any time, really. I want the workshop to really feel like a special, eclectic mix of art and artisanal wank fest, really. So,
and then in your videos, when you balance to the bluer lights, it's so cool because you've got this two-tone in the work, which I can't think of.
You can expect a lot of wide angle shots.
Hey, could you use those, or do you need those lights for shaping the surfboards at all?
There'll be a huge help, especially because it's like an even light. I put one up, just like clamped it onto the forklift and raised it up to about the height I thought and plugged it in. And the like angle that it throws is amazing, but also I ran my hand under it like as far as I could, and the light was even no matter what I did. So
cool.
Hopefully it doesn't have the effect of flattening out those lines when you're shaping, but I think it should be okay, because even if it does flatten it out, I can actually dim them. They're all programmable.
Okay. Of course they are. I'm surprised they don't have one of those remotes where you can change their colors as well.
Well, come on, Robin. They're not that good.
Talking about the pendant lights, I know Jimmy DeResta in his shop, he's using those with the paper balls.
Right.
To diffuse them. Maybe use those as well in conjunction with the LEDs, or is it just stupid now in the amount?
I mean, there is one idea in the pipeline, because I got it's a 3K output downlight, like bigger than my head. And I thought, I could use that and make one of my wooden light shades around that and then hang it in the shop. But I think that's getting a little bit silly, because the size I'd have to make that light shade is like 1.5 meters diameter. So, but there's lots of options, and end of the day, it's cool.
While we're on lighting, just a quick question. So you say you don't like the warm light in your workshop. What temperature do you use, or would you like to use?
Is it 5600K is natural sunlight?
I thought it was 4,000.
Maybe
Sorry, 4,000K. Yeah.
I don't know what temperatures are. I know 2700K is what the warm light I'm using in the workshop is. I think it's either 4,000 or 5,600 out there.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking is I've got 4K in here, which is supposed to be daylight, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But I know a lot of people use the 57 or 6000K.
6400.
Or whatever it is around there. What I think is, there we go. So Steven's just said 6400 is daylight. Okay. And using 4000K in here, recently I've been looking at it. I've got a 6400 behind me, and I look at that light and I'm like, that's actually so much. I think I prefer that to the 4000. And that's why I was wondering what you were using. For me, with all the timber, I don't want a blue light because it just makes everything look yuck. So that's why I went warmer. But now I'm starting to question maybe that wasn't the best decision.
So I like a few accents of the warmer light throughout the place, because then you can bring the work under that light and see it just in a different shadow. Like this was just how the workshop had lights. It had cool light everywhere except one light had warm, and that's when I moved in. And it really annoyed me for ages until I was finishing a table, and then I just moved it on the dolly randomly under the other light, and I could see details that I couldn't see on the other light, on the other under the other lights is what I'm trying to say. So it was kind of cool to have that in the end of the day, but now I'm not using it because it's fluoro and ugly, and I like my slimline LED awesomeness.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
So if anyone wants to buy some lights, I'll send it for $9,500. It's $500 saving.
Cool. Anything else?
Oh God, I mean, there's been heaps, but let's leave it at that.
Before we head off what you've been doing, last week and the week before, you were saying that you were quite under the pump with stuff that's been going on. Has that leveled out a bit?
No, but what I've kind of done is I have said, expletive it. It's not worth the stress, and I've just taken the chill pill because there's so much. Exactly. There's only so much I can do, and I don't want to work myself into the point of where I was at the end of last year and end up, cutting another digit or injuring myself because of exhaustion. I'm just, I emailed the people that I'm working on right now, and I said, hey guys, look, I understand that you're wanting your table, but the thing is, you lowballed the price, like you negotiated the price way down, and this isn't even going to pay my rent. So do you mind if we just delay it? Like, I didn't actually say, do you mind? Yeah, I just said, so a few things have come in which have to have my priority. So we're looking at about a week delay. And they emailed me back and said, oh, dude, no stress at all. We understand completely. So I was putting this stress on myself.
For nothing. And I mean, a week delay when you're getting a custom piece of furniture.
It's nothing, yeah.
Yeah, a week is nothing. If I'm a week behind, I'll just say to the client, look, the weather's too cold and the stuff's not drying, so it's going to be a week.
That's actually where all of my problems came from, is that the resin was not setting because it's been too cold.
I thought you were going somewhere else there, Joey. It's just so cold out. I can't get out of bed. Sorry.
My slippers are so warm and I don't want to get in the car.
That's a good option.
But yeah, still a lot going on. Still doing this new website. Still doing all this new market research. Doing budgeting. Like I apparently need to find $12,000 for a startup, but that's not going to happen. So I was doing ideal situations in the budget, and I figured that I can order as I go. I don't need to buy stock in. I don't need to do this. Blah blah blah. So lots of stuff happening, but starting to get on top of it.
Cool.
Sweet. Yeah. Robin, what's up?
This week I finished the weatherboards, which is really nice. So I finally have the outside of the shop looking nice. They're all finished. The window boxes are done. All the trim's done. They're painted. Turned out way better than I thought. A couple of weeks ago, you might remember we talked about I wasn't quite sure how I was going to feather the new boards in. Turned out amazing. The only problem is that the sheen level on the new section of the weatherboards is different. Old ones. So I think I'm going to invest in one of those spray guns that we talked about last week, guys, after the podcast. One of those airless ones.
You got one, did you?
No, I haven't got it yet, but I probably will. $150 from Bunnings and just do the house like that. It's just one coat.
That's the way to go, yep.
So with the weatherboards done, I now have a workshop with no weatherboards in it. So I literally have spent this entire week with the brush and the vacuum, and I vacuumed up everything. You could eat your food off the floor in here. It's amazing. It's so much better. And we're going to get onto the topic tonight about shop organization. And this was sort of one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this. I'm so much happier in the workshop now, just this level of zen, because there's not stuff under my feet and I'm not bumping into things.
Yeah.
So this week, that's pretty much all I did. And then the last thing that I did yesterday, I got myself a vise. Do you know, I've never owned a vise.
That's true.
Is it the one on the bench behind you? I can see in the corner.
Yeah. Tiny little guy.
How good are they?
It's a small one, and it's obviously not like the you see them on YouTube where these guys make these vices that could crush their workbench in it. It obviously doesn't have that much pulling power, but because I've never owned one, I'm not really sure how much I'm going to use it. There's been many times when I wish I'd had it enough. Had to like clamp a big block onto my workbench so that I can clamp the workpiece to that. So in that case, I'm excited for it. But I thought I'd go with this, just a little guy, and then if I love it, then I'll upgrade to something bigger down the line.
Well, the good thing about having a small one like that is it gives you other clamping options that, like you are already doing. You can put a bigger post in that and then clamp onto that post. But it's a little bit more secure, because I have leg vices and I still have to do that, because I wish I had one bench with at least one of that style, because it's a bit more
what is it? Is it like an engineer's vice or like a steel wood?
You know, the Irwin kind of quick release.
Oh yeah.
So the only thing I don't understand about this design, so for those of you who aren't watching the video, it's mounted on the edge of my workbench from underneath.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to put something in and you want to do chiseling, surely that's going to put so I've bolted mine through the workbench and just countersunk the bolts. But surely that's a lot of stress on the vise or that joint. Why don't you mount it on the top of the workbench?
I think if you're chiseling, you don't put it in that style of vise.
Is that the go? Because obviously for planing,
it's more of a holding sort of thing. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I would usually, if I'm chiseling something, it's sitting on the bench with a hold fast or a clamp going over the top of it and clamping it down.
Yeah.
Not against, because that's friction you're basically using to hold it in place.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. So you would never use the style of you'd never use the style of advice. You'd never use the style of vice to chisel just by virtue of the fact that it's between two jaws. You'd always have it on your workbench.
Yeah, I mean, usually.
Yeah, that makes sense,
I mean, you will still do it because you're too lazy to release it and lift it back up. But in theory, you shouldn't need to.
Yeah. So Dan in the chat just said that vice is more for sawing or planing the work rather than carving. So yeah. Yeah, well, that makes sense, because I just thought eventually I'm just gonna, because my workbench top is it's a fairly old pine, Oregon pine. It's not gonna last if I'm smashing away at it. So yeah, but yeah, that's been my week. Pretty awesome. Uneventful, but happy to tick some boxes. Okay, so this week we're going to talk about a question that came in from the Discord server. Yeah, from the Discord server. And we were going to talk about it last week, but we got into Joey's awesome client and we never got around to it. So we thought we'd touch on it this week. It is from one of the Discord server users called Love Gun. And it's quite a long question, but I'll read through all of it. It says, don't know if it's been discussed in great detail, but I've really been struggling with shop organization, especially lately, but it's something I've always sucked at. I have a wall-mounted lumber rack, which is pretty full, a sheet goods rack, which is overflowing, a ton of offcuts that might, in quotes, might be useful someday. And it's not just wood. I haven't even mentioned all the hand tools, power tools, hardware, screws, washers, hinges, etc., sandpaper, sheets, glue, brushes, and the list goes on. More things have their homes, just seem to end up all over regardless. I've also recently purchased a dust collector, but haven't gotten the entire shop piped up properly, so my chips and sawdust linger despite my best efforts. Overall, I know what I'm supposed to do. It's just not easy. And since I'm not a pro, I don't have much time for trial and error. So I'm reluctant to spend the time in building for storage, only to find out after all the time, money, and effort that it's not going to work for me. So any tips for a part-time hobbyist woodworker who still wants a decent shop?
Give up.
Plain and simple.
No, I don't know. See, you've said my biggest issue in your question alone is that you've got all this stock, which is not necessarily. So for me, anyway, I wish I never bought stock in bulk. I wish I only ever bought it in as I needed it, because half my problem is space, and everyone will have that issue. And I know it sounds rich coming from someone with a 300 square meter factory, but still, space is always an issue no matter what. We're woodworkers are goldfish. We grow into our size. But by having all of this stock on the shelf, which doesn't move, it's, especially for someone like me, which is paying rent by the square meter, it's essentially wasting all of this space that I'm paying for. Like in a hobby shop, it's wasting all of this really valuable space for working area. Even if you're storing vertical, you can do better things up there. So for me, my biggest wish is buy what you need when you need it. A little bit of stock is fine, but not heaps of anything.
That's really true. I've been collecting a lot of trees that I've been milling, and I keep seeing trees now, and I have to say, you've got to stop, because in the same way with lumber, it's not that I'm ending up with more good wood. I'm ending up with a lot of what is soon to become offcuts.
Yeah.
You've got to do something with that. So you got to, just rein that in before it gets out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you, Jordan, that like my lumber racks are mostly empty, and I'll buy in what I need per job, and that will take one of the racks. And then usually during that job, those racks will get filled with various pieces of the work while I'm working on other pieces, or with the next job, lot of timber waiting to go or something. But I can almost always, like, we'll have kind of 4 long bays empty on my timber rack, because if that's full up, that should mean that I'm really busy with work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point if you're not, like, you've got to store the timber, yes, but if you're not using it, then get rid of it.
Yeah. I have probably about 10 1 meter wide slabs sitting in my floor. I'm not going to make slab tables. No one wants slab tables from me, but so it's this massive amount of floor space taken up by all these slabs. So it's just, what do I do with it? I either sell it cheap or I burn it. I'm not going to do that. Don't comment in.
Yeah. You can leave right now, Jordan.
Yeah.
So Guy's just mentioned in the chat, Guy Jackson has said 50% cleaning, 30% looking for the tool you just had, and 20% woodworking. So you mentioned the 50% cleaning, and Joey, you and I have talked about this in the past, how important it is to keep a clean workshop. I don't know about you, but I actually find cleaning the workshop totally cathartic. I love cleaning the workshop and being able to look back and have a nice space to work in.
Are you saying that my workshop's messy, Robin? Is that why I'm not included in this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So,
all right, I'm out. Bye.
go sleep on your slabs that you're burning for warmth. So, Joey, do you enjoy cleaning, or are you just doing it because
I enjoy as soon as I'm finished cleaning. I really don't like spending the time to do it, but it'll probably at least once a week I'll be halfway through something and I'll just look around and go, that's it, stop work, everything's going back to where it lives. I'm sweeping the floor. We've got a designated pile that goes for like tip rubbish. Once that gets full, I'll take a run to the tip and drop everything off. But until then, I'll stop everything, clean up, put everything in a pile, make sure all the tools I'm not currently using go back to their homes, and then Like, it's just so nice having a clear path from one bench to the other or over to the table saw without having to slip on sawdust and stuff.
Yeah.
One thing I thought I'd mention, in his question, he did mention sawdust and chips of wood and stuff. Even with very good dust extraction, you will get dust and chips everywhere anyway. So I would say perhaps lower your expectation about how clean you think it might be going to be.
Yep.
I've got a 3-phase 5 horsepower extractor, and when the light's right and I'm cutting on the table saw, I mean, you can still see plumes of dust spewing out of that machine. It just throws dust everywhere, even with an overhead guard with extraction, and underneath, they're not foolproof. So you can expect dust everywhere, and you can expect to have to sweep, probably ideally once a day, I would say.
And on that note, I agree. Like, I'm in the same boat. I have a 7.5 horsepower thing, and there's still dust everywhere. But on that note, is you design knowing that no matter what, there's going to be dust. So whether you make it so your benches sit a little bit higher so you can blow it out with a leaf blower, or you make them sit all the way down onto the floor so dust can't get under them. You don't have open drawers or open cupboards if you're that concerned about dust being in your tool case. Like, all of that, you have to kind of live with dust. It's kind of the biggest pain in the butt, but you need to.
The other element to his question was the time in the shop, and I think, George, both of us have a great advantage that we spend a lot of time, way more than a hobbyist, and so we get used to workflow and we get used to what works, and you have a lot more time for, I guess, a kind of a muscle memory about putting things back. Well, certainly I do.
Yeah, I do. You wouldn't believe looking at my shop, but I do.
and so there's a part of it where it's just building up those hours in the workshop where you get to learn a better workflow and what does and doesn't work. And after a year of full time, 40 hours plus in the workshop, you get to a pretty good rhythm, and building up that same amount of hours working only on Saturdays is going to take a lot longer.
The other, I used to get a lot of crap when I used to move my shop around a lot, but the more time you spend in your shop, the more you get used to that workflow that you're working with. So, okay, well, now I know that this workbench works better over here.
Yeah.
And this is over here. And I like to think of my workshop as zones. And especially now, I've rearranged my machinery to be in a straight line. So from the front of the shop to the back of the shop, I walk up and down for every process. And maybe it's not the most efficient way, but it works really well because everything's now zoned. Like, this is the cutting down and sizing zone. Here's the machining zone. Here's the assembly zone. And in each one of those zones is the tools which correspond to it. So assembly zone, I have my clamps, my glue, my drop sheets, all of that within arm's reach. And that's been a huge help.
Talking about the sweeping, the only one is my hand tool workbench, just because it's a bit more squat, but everything else in my workshop is up enough for a broom handle to get under. Because otherwise, you can never clean up under there. Obviously putting it on wheels works as well.
It's
but
funny, do you care? Would you really care though? Like, for me, my long bench that has my miter saw on it, I have just on regular kind of adjustable kitchen feet, plastic adjustable feet. So I've got 150 mil-ish along that. And I have no idea what's under there, but I can't see it, and I can never get at it.
Oh, yeah, no, don't get me wrong.
There's sawdust under it. I mean, so that's sort of something I wanted to bring up, was that I clean what needs to be cleaned. Yeah. I'm not going to get up and sweep my rafters off, even though they're covered in sawdust. It's just doing perfectly well sitting up there. No, it's not hurting anyone. So I can say wherever it wants.
Maybe it's hurting a few things, like your lungs and all the dust.
No, because it's up on the rafters.
Yeah.
It's sitting up there. If I can see it on the rafters, it means it's not floating in the air. Isn't that how it works?
If I can see it, it means it's safe.
It's not so much being able to clean everything underneath but it's being able to, for me, when I go around when I want to sweep up, I can just sweep, and I don't need to worry. I'm not going to be bashing the broom into things, and you know what I mean. It just makes life a lot easier. And that when you're looking at it, that maybe 50 mil back from the underneath of your bench is clean, so you know that's clean, and anything behind that, whatever, cockroaches can have it.
Yeah. One thing I've always wanted to have set up in my shop, which I haven't got around to, is every bench has a bench brush and like a dustpan and brush. Every bench has its own shop vac with its own nozzle and attachments, which is always plugged in and ready to power on. And every bench has a hook on the end of it, so you can put, cables or wires or your tools or whatever, hang it on the end. I've been saying it since day one, and I still have not done it to this day.
Yeah.
But it's one thing I think would help.
How do you guys store all of your, talking about that, how do you store all of your smaller stuff? So like I have a overflowing tub of screws, which is just continuing to overflow because I've not done anything. But like your screwdrivers and your hand planes, is the hanging wall the way to go, or do you guys keep it in? Joey, I think you have open shelves, don't you?
Well, on my workbench, so I've got drawers for my hand planes and like fine woodworking tools, scribes and dovetail markers and all that kind of fine stuff. All is away on drawers, mainly because I just wanted to put drawers on my workbench, but actually works really well about keeping everything clean. So things like screws, I have like an area on one of my benches which has just boxes of screws, and that area is not defined by any markings or anything. I just know that this general area on my bench, the only thing that lives here is boxes of screws, and that I keep them all in their same boxes. I've got labels on them. That's fine. I've got a rack on the wall where all my drills and batteries and drivers sit, and once I've finished using it, they go back onto that rack. I've got a rack where all my battery and electric power tools sit, and they go back on there once I've finished using it. So everything, I've got a big kind of rack of clamps, F clamps and G clamps. They will just get thrown back into this pile after I use them. So what I like to have, sorry?
I was just going to say, I think the takeaway there is that everything has a place. But I think that's possibly what you're about to say.
I guess my biggest kind of thing I like is that at least one, or certainly my biggest workbench, my assembly table, unless I'm working on it, it should be clear, completely clear, so I can just bring something in and put it down.
Yeah. And it should, I think to get to that, you need to have everything have a place. So with my workbench, my main workbench, I have a similar mentality where it's always got to be clean, but the only reason I'm able to do that is because there's all shelves underneath. So if I've found something that's not supposed to be there, I can just chuck it up underneath. But it's that having somewhere for everything to go is so difficult when you've got all these new tools coming in, and this piece of lumber is coming in, and there is never, everything's constantly in motion. There's never, I don't know if you guys find the same thing.
Yeah, but there's certainly, it's amazing. Like you just go down to Bunnings and buy the cheapest set of like kit set shelving, like sort of steel frame things for like $20. Put that up, and then just say, on this, I'm only going to keep these types of tools, or this shelf is only going to be my screws shelf. And if you stick to that, suddenly that clears space from wherever they were before, and it's all, that's where it's going to go. So just by a very simple thing of taking up, a little bit of floor space by some shelving, actually will increase your I would assume, or I would say that it's going to increase your productivity heaps.
Yeah. I think one thing that I struggle with, and this comes to your point there, Joey, with the shelf, is that when I'm working on a project, I haven't got a place for incomplete projects. So the bench is always full of components for that project when, I might not have to do anything on that project for 2 or 3 days, but that bench is now out of work action. So one thing I've been thinking of is how can I clear a bit of my existing rack to have that, projects which are in the works but not being worked on right now stored away somewhere which is out of the road and also safer being stored because, if you're moving around, especially if you've seen me behind a forklift, bumping into crap left, right, and center.
If you haven't, you've been run over.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen me coming.
I said it was actually the adjointer where I got in trouble, but it's actually the forklift.
Cool. All right. We're running a bit short on time. So is there anything else that you guys want to mention about this?
No.
Yeah, I could probably keep going, but that'll do. Just buy some shelving, go put stuff on shelves.
Just become an internet woodworker. Then you're forced.
Someone in the comments, I can't remember who it was. I'm just scrolling back now. Here we go, from Stephen Hawker. Here, Ari, cleaning. I've the problem at the moment where I'm rebuilding the workshop and everything is everywhere, and I keep rolling my ankles on all of the crap on the floor. Not last week, before, I had that moment where I was working. I had all the weatherboards that I mentioned in the beginning of the show lying everywhere. And because I'd been working on the bathroom, this had just turned into a storage area. And I was trying to do something, and my assembly bench was full, and I just lost it. And I just out of anger and frustration, I just started pushing everything off the bench. I threw a couple things across the workshop.
Oh, you went full Hulk.
Definitely not a moment I ever want my friends or family to see me in, because I had to spend the next couple of hours after that picking everything up. And I just stopped and I went, you know what? You just can't do this. You cannot, and especially you guys with commercial shops, you cannot work in an environment like that. So take the time, sort it out before doing anything else.
Yeah. And it makes the headspace so much better when it's a clean shop. Like you can actually get in and feel like you can start your project at the beginning of the day and not feel like you have to put a million things away.
Yeah. Absolutely. Cool. All right. Well, I hope that answers the question. Have you guys been watching anything interesting this week that you want to mention, Joey?
This old Tony, I haven't seen a lot of him. I'm sure everyone's seen his stuff. I happened to catch his video on Alex French Guy Cooking's pasta machine build. That's awesome. Go watch this old Tony.
So it's funny you talk about.
I suggested that video 3 weeks ago.
No, did you? Was it this old? I thought you suggested Alex French Guy Cooking.
No.
So
well, shit.
Alex French Guy Cooking seems to be popping up a lot. Like, I'm sure he was in the Making It podcast. They were talking about him in the Making It podcast as well. Okay. All right. This dude's doing amazingly in the maker scene.
He's just collaborating with everyone. He did Direster and Alex Steele and he's just been a legend.
I still haven't checked it out yet.
What do you do with Direster?
A pizza cutter with 2 saws.
Oh, is that him? Oh, that's
okay. Well, that must be the connection then.
Yeah.
How about you, Jordan?
I honestly haven't even been on YouTube this week, so
that's right.
Nothing.
How dare you?
I'm sorry. I mean, I've been watching Joey Chalk and Robin Lewis.
But you haven't been putting any time and effort into that. What was it? Robotech?
Oh, well, Robotech's... Actually, I did leave several comments on the Robotech YouTube channel about how crap they are. And funnily enough, all of them got deleted.
What? Outrageous.
I know.
I'll make sure then not to check out Robotech, because it sounds like Robotech's not a very good company.
Yeah, Robotech CNC. Avoid at all costs.
I concur.
So this week I saw a video by Garage Woodworks. His name's Brian. He's a pretty... He really blew up when the whole woodworking maker movement started, and I think he's stuck to his style, which is amazing if that's what you like, because you can go back in his back catalog and it's just all gold. Right. But what I really like is the way he explains things. It's pretty. I think for the advanced guys, it might be a little bit straightforward, but for someone like myself who's still very much learning the proper techniques, really cool dude to watch. So he made a lidded box, just a simple box, but there was a bit of a twist in the way he put it together. I haven't seen it done like that before. So yeah, Garage Woodworks, go check it out. Cool.
That was interesting.
All right, everyone. Well, I just want to mention quickly before we leave, once again, next week we will be here on Tuesday. If you are joining us live on YouTube in the chat. It's going to be on Tuesday from now on for the foreseeable future. So that will be the new date of the show. Joey, Jordan, anything else you guys want to mention before we leave everyone tonight?
Just a public announcement about a particular CNC company to stay away from.
What's that name again?
It was Robotech CNC.
Okay.
Yeah, stay away.
Yeah, that's me. I'm good.
Yeah, no,
Cool.
I'm good.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you very much to everyone in the chat for all the. Oh, sorry, no. Before we run off. We had a question from Leroy. This one will be pretty quick.
Okay, quick.
So, Leroy, about to do my first kitchen benchtop for the perfect client, my mum. Oh, that's very cute. Thinking about using quarter sawn white oak. Any reason I shouldn't? Anything to keep in mind? Anything you think would be better? Only specification is that it's light in color. Otherwise, I have free reign. Jordan, go.
Where is he based? I have no idea. But yeah, white oak's beautiful. Quarter sawn, nice and stable. Not going to move. Can't go wrong. As long as you got good supply of it and it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. Cool. I don't know where you're based, Leroy. So
I think he's in Australia.
If you're getting a stock of quarter sawn oak, that's mint.
Well, all I'm going to say is your mum's going to love you, whatever it is, because she's your mum. So I'm sure it'll be fantastic. I know my mum would do the same. All right, everyone. Well, thanks very much for joining in. Thanks to everyone in the chat. And we'll see you all again on Tuesday next week, same time.
See ya.
Right.